Today we're going to talk a little bit about registration, or the what we know as the chest voice and the head voice, and how we use them, and why, in my opinion, you need to be able to use both, and you should not neglect any part of your voice. So just like we would have, bicep curls and tricep work to get stronger, to be able to lift more. We actually have a synergistic muscle group, two synergistic muscles in our throats that allow us to sing high and sing low and full. So we have our CT, our head voice mechanism, which pulls the larynx forward. It lengthens the vocal folds out like a rubber band. And then we have our TA group, which are in the back, and those squeeze and compress and thicken the folds so that we get that louder, brassier, kind of belty sound. I like to do exercises to separate them, and then we can do some to blend them together. So I like this. I like to work both. I'll do some head voice warm-ups, like ooh, 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 just to get, the crud off. And then work the chest voice a little bit, and depending on your mood that day, you can flip these. It depends, just some days we feel like we need a little more work in the chest voice, some days we need a little more work in the head voice. If I'm froggy or anything, I actually tend to work on the chest voice first, because it kind of lets those folds vibrate in a thick way and kind of gets the crud and phlegm and nasty stuff off of them. But we can do so a little bit of that work just to kind of, move things a little bit, feel that thickness and the fullness in the folds. So, and if you've been speaking a lot during the day, you may not need to do the chest voice exercises first. Like I said, it just depends on your mood and how things are feeling. The more you get to know your voice, the more you know which is best for you on any given day. Then I like to juxtapose the two, so we're going to move between ah, ooh, ah. And this is going to utilize a lot of breath support as well. We don't want to under-support this, because when we're working with belting sounds, we need to move a lot of air. We need to have a lot of air behind the sound, or else it gets pinched sounding. So we're going to go through that again. Ah, ooh, ah, ah, ooh, ah, ah, ooh, I feel like this is all very relaxed as I work through that. I'm just kind of thinking, oh, and then moving forward like it's a trombone or something. Like the next pitch is right there. We're not thinking big leaps to the top, but just staying connected in one breath. Last one for me. If you're a strong belter, you can probably take that up to an F. I only stopped at E flat today. And then beyond there, we can kind of blend the two registrations, working usually top to bottom. For me, that works better, and for most of my classical singer friends, like, we are definitely more comfortable working the top voice down into the chest register rather than the other way around. In most of my colleagues' opinions and my own, when you start with more chest voice heavy singing and then you go up, like that exercise we just did, actually, if I were to drag that higher, what happens is that the top becomes restricted and constrained, and we don't want to take any extra weight or any extra effort into our top notes. We want our top notes to be really free. So it's better to maybe start with a head voice around, I see above middle C is where I'm going to start. So we're just going to go, and keep the throat really open as we move. navigation towards a more chest voice, a lighter chest voice sound. I'm moving it forward just a little bit so that I don't get myself into a big heavy belt sound. This is probably the last one I can do like this. Maybe one more. Can I take my chest, my mix down to A? Let's see. That's the best fake mezzo I can give you. Okay, so those are my registration exercises, blending chest and head voice. I have faked being a mezzo quite a bit in the last couple years. Definitely not a mezzo at all. But I've definitely faked it a few times. I do a lot of that soup-ready kind of stuff and then random things. So, there you go. There's my registration exercises for you to work with today. We're going to work with a little bit of upper register range extension kind of things. So I'm kind of a freak and have always had quite a bit of an upper range. So what I can say towards building it is just to work slowly. Keep relying on your breath. Don't feel like you ever have to be loud. The higher you go, the less you have to worry about loudness, because the human voice is able to cut above all kinds of musical instruments. So when you're in the upper register stuff, don't worry about it. Like, physics has your back here. So we're just going to do a range extension exercise that comes from James Jordan's choral warm-ups book. So I like this one for my choir. I'm going to start at G. Many singers are going to have to start down at E. I'm just going to show you what I do working on that range extension. We're just going to pop up to the top of each phrase briefly rather than trying to extend it, and then I'll show you some extending the top note exercises in a moment here. So here's just kind of getting it warmed up to begin with. Just flip right through it. Don't worry about any kind of volume or anything like that. And I call this tossing the basketball. Just up and over the hoop. I spread a little bit at the top. I know that I have a voice teacher that would tell me I needed to have a longer ah. Just, again, depends on the size of your voice. You may want to really maintain the same vowel all the way up through your range. If you have a bigger instrument, that might not always work. Just depends. So I kept my taller ah in that one. If you can see, I'll try to keep it a bit taller going forward. Okay, and then if you want to work on extending those higher notes, this one is really enjoyable to sing. I'm going to start at middle C, and then I'm going to move up through an octave and a fifth, and then move down by scale. So I'm going to move up on an arpeggio. C, E, G, C, E, G, and then down by scale to C. Okay? Again, if you watch the breath videos, the vowel doesn't need to change. We just keep the breath moving. Took that up to a B today, but you see the idea, and you can keep going with that moving forward.